Boy, g'day guys, it's Sam here from Built Not Bought, and today we got a special rig for you. We got Chris Mingay's lime green trophy truck. Talk about best day at work ever. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you can relate a trophy truck. I mean, come on, this is like any child's dream, and I'm up close and personal with one today. So without further ado, I want to get straight into this one, but we're going to start with the back end this time. All right, so back end, being a race car, everything's got to be with you when you're on the track. So 2 spare tyres, they're 37-inch tyres, and then smack bang in the middle, you've got your toolkit. So what this has got in here, firstly, this whole car is built with cams regulation. When you're racing, you've got to have certain things in place. There's an OK sign there, so it's got OK, not OK, so if someone comes along, they know if you need help or if you're all good. There's a jack in here, been slightly modified. I'll show you a bit later, but inside the car, there's a little pocket there where there's a rattle gun for the navigator. Now he can put this straight in here and wind this thing up super quickly. So if you need to change a tyre, that can be done on the run. Underneath here, there's just a whole lot of spare parts. Pretty much anything you need to, fix the car on the run, spare belts, stuff like that. Okay, come around the side more. Only other thing up in the back here, big radiator. You've probably seen that on other race cars that I've shot. You want to keep that towards the back because if it's at the front, you're going to have dirt, rocks, anything that can puncture it in it potentially. So they stick it at the back there with big fans to suck the heat out. The whole body has got a fiberglass shell on it. So the thing's full tube chassis frame, but the fiberglass is on there to make it look like a car, obviously. Coming towards the front, all right, here we are at the front end, which is basically the business end of this truck. Now this is a Robbie Gordon style front end. You can probably notice that there's these aluminium blocks in here. Now that is to create a weak point, because if you have some sort of bump out in the bush, this will fold up and you can replace this in a day. It's just a bit of tubing, but if you damage that main frame, you're in trouble. So that's designed to do that. And then the motor. Okay, so this is a 6-litre LS2. Now it's putting out about 600 horsepower. The reason for that, it's got forged internals, forged pistons, forged rods, massive cam in it. There's a fast manifold on here with a big throttle body. Now that's actually been flipped around backwards. Pretty awesome, you can do them on these LSs, because what that means is the air that will get sucked in through the back end rather than the front where there's a whole lot of dust, because you want to keep dust down in this thing, of course. Massive water pump as well. The reason for that, as I mentioned earlier, the radiator on the back is so big and so far away, you need to have a really high volume water pump to pump it through that distance there. Whole lot of coolers and stuff on the front. You've got your power steering cooler, oil cooler, there's reservoirs here as well. The power steering pump's a big trophy truck pump, so it's sort of a hydro steer rack, but it's like mechanically assisted as well. So if you do lose it, you can somewhat turn the car, but it's hydro steer to turn the big tires. Everything else is pretty sort of standard. The alternator's all set up to run standardly. Huge extractors here, you can see sticking out the side. There's a spare serpentine belt just bolted on here. Like, I know for a fact that on an LS, you lose that serpentine belt, you lose everything. Power steering, alternator, the lot. So there's a quick one there to whack on if you snap it. Gearbox is a Turbo 400, fully manualized to take the power on there. So the sump in this, it doesn't have a dry sump setup, but it's sort of a Corvette gated sump. So that means if it's like flicking around, swirling around, the oil's not gonna disappear into the corner of the sump. It actually keeps it within its little zones. So that stops surging and stuff like that. All right, so while I'm here, you can see the shocks there. Let's talk about suspension and what's underneath the car. All right, so this is actually, it's not a triple bypass, it's a 5-way bypass shock, so it's the King's 3.5. And there's also a coil over on there for like ride height, so the shock obviously acts as a shock, you guys know this. The front end is sort of independent, so it's got boxed A-arms on there, so it's not 4-wheel drive, this is a 2-wheel drive trophy truck, and there's limiting straps on there, all that kind of stuff. So that's sort of the front end, running through to the back. So it's rear wheel drive. Shocks are the same, they're the King's 3.5, camera's going all All right, so on the back end, the 3.5 Kings as well. There's also the coilovers on there. The only difference here, there's also got hydraulic bump stops as well, so that's to assist, they're massive trailing arms. So I think there's 24 inches of travel in the front and forgot the back. What is that?
27.
And 27 inches in the back. All right, that is insane. And like, he could lift the thing, I can't. But yeah, it's quite soft. When it comes up in the stroke, you can hit the harder stuff. The diff, all right, it's a 10-inch diff. Custom housing, chrome ollie. It's got the axles on it apparently like a Coke can, like ridiculous. 36 spline straight into the housing there. So strong as shit. How big's the drive shaft? Probably just like that.
Short and fat. Yeah.
short and fat drive shaft as well. What else did I miss? Okay, coming out the side here, exhaust. Now, Mingray, you may have heard this before. He's got a brother. Mingay. Now, Mingay, you may have heard the name before. He's got a brother, Matt Mingay, who runs the Hot Wheels trophy truck. And there was a little story behind these exhausts. Chris had to go bigger and better. So it's actually a 3.5 inch coming out to a 4-inch dump on the side there, and there's one on the other side. They sound and look awesome, tell you what. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the outside. What's underneath? We'll jump inside the cockpit to see what's going on in there. All right, inside. Give me a minute to get in here. All right, I made it. I'm a little guy, so all good. Beautiful seats, so they're the Sparko racing seats. Full 5-point harness as well. Now I'm on the driver's side here, and then there's the navigator on the other side. He's got a bar to hang on to. So what I can see, whole lot of buttons and stuff. Pretty much everything can be controlled from in here. So you've got all your fans and switches, fuel pump, ignition, all that in here. There's little fuses as well for the buttons. I hope that's what they are. Circuit breakers. Yeah, little circuit breakers in there for the buttons. With the helmet, that's pretty trick as well. So when you're fully hooked in, you've also got a neck brace, so you actually click your helmet to the seat to stop your neck from coming forward in an accident. There's also blowers, so there's a blower for the driver and the navvy, the driver and the navvy. Yes, that was right. I thought I said the same thing. So that actually blows cool air into the helmet because it gets goddamn hot in here. There's also an intercom section set up thing, so you can actually talk to each other and probably back to the crew if you need as well through the UHF. There's a talk button PTT, press to talk button on each side. So if you're swearing and stuff and you don't want your mate to hear, he won't until you press that button. Pretty sure that's how it goes, right? So, a bit of a funny story about this panel as well. Now, Chris was in the Air Force for 20 years. Now, these are actually out of a jet fighter plane. Was it a Hornet? Yeah, a Hornet jet fighter, these circuit breakers. So, a bit of a touch there, pretty awesome. Now, this steering wheel, it's a quick release as well. You got your race pack dial gauge there, pretty basic. It just shows you the revs, all the things you need, temperatures and stuff like that. Hydraulic handbrake here, that's pretty trick. Now if you're in a tight section, being such a large truck and you want to keep up with those side-by-sides, hydraulic handbrake to get around the corners. Also, there is the pack on the other side there, so that's where the navvy I was saying before has the rattle gun there, just to quickly grab to do things. I don't know why he'd need a rattle gun inside a car, but look, it's there. Why does he need it? There's a little knife up here, so if you get stuck in the car, you can cut yourself loose if need be, if anything's in the way. You've got a massive rear vision mirror there to see who's behind you. Side mirrors, nets of course, so you can't run any glass or windows on these race cars. You've got to have the nets in there to keep your body parts in though. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's time to go for a spin in this thing. We've seen everything about it, and yeah. Alright guys, so that has been the rig rundown of Chris Mingay's trophy truck. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to see many more rig rundowns and videos that I do. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace! So I've just been ripping around in this thing, you know, on the flat, but there's a jump over there. I'm gonna jump that, but first you gotta hit subscribe.